Hi everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates. I had so much fun with my embroidered sardine patch that I thought I'd try something different this time. It was so much fun. It took a lot of time, so this video I'm going to not show you every single time I stitch on it, but I'm going to tell you the exact time frame it's taking for me to finish it. And I'm also doing something different. I am taking an image from a piece of fabric. This is a design from Riley Blake. It's a scrap that I got, and I love this little flower design right here. Now I want to make it into a patch. It is about, I'm going to do this leaf, but I'm not going to do that leaf because I think it's a little too thin. I don't know. It could end up being about 4 inches, a 4-inch patch by the time I'm done with it. So I'm going to take this. I have my colors chosen already, but I'm taking it directly from the fabric and I'm going to embroider on top of it to make it into a patch. So this time what I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of felt, but last time I did a really thick felt. This time I'm going to do a thinner felt, a much thinner felt, so that the fabric will give some stability and the felt will finish off with the rest of the stability. So I'm kind of balancing it out. On the sardines, I just had felt that I was stitching on and the Fabrisolve, so that was the thickness. This time I'm not using any Fabrisolve. I'm just going to stitch it down onto the fabric and the felt. The other thing I did too is that you could see all the patterns in here. So I kind of looked around on this scrap of fabric where I saw a piece, and there it is, that looked about right to do a patch. Now, there are all these pieces that come out that make it thinner over here. Thinner as in you can add it, but it will create these long like fingers outside of your patch. I'm trying to look at it as a more compact. So I'm thinking, okay, something like that. So this, where I have the pins, I kind of marked it. The pins, that leaf, this flower, and this leaf, I won't add to this. So you could kind of see the design. I'm going to trim it out right now. So let me grab my scissors and I'll show you the shape that I'm going to work with. So I'm going to include these other leaves that I just said I'm not going to include in the final stitching. Now, for example, here, this particular leaf ends behind this flower. Now I'm going to stitch over it so I can assume that the leaf, and I'm just taking my friction pen, so I'm going to assume the leaf goes out that far. Add a little extra fabric back there. I don't want this flower, so I'm going to cut that off. 2 things I'm doing here. I'm definitely leaving, I may leave this leaf on, so I'm going to just give it some space here. So I'm removing the flowers that I don't want, that I know I don't want, but I'm keeping at least, I'm going to need at least 1/8 of an inch, so I'm trying to add a little space around it. So that is what I have right now. This leaf, again, will probably go away, and this leaf is going away. So I should probably cut that off. I'm kind of tempted to leave this leaf here. So that's what I'm going to start with now. I'm going to take my thin felt, and this is why it's good to always have all kinds of little scraps of stuff, because you just never know when you're going to need it. I'm torn. I like this leaf, but I think it's going to be a little too weak out here. I'm going to leave it though. This flower's going away. So now what I'm going to do is cut this out of the felt backing. And I don't have to do it exactly to match. And this is very thin felt, like I said. Now what I need to do is, like I did on the sardines, I'm going to do some tacking strips to hold the fabric in place so the fabric and the felt stick together. I'll be back. Just with the piece of scrap thread, I'm just going around the edges just to hold the fabric in place while I stitch. I guess you can use some Yoo-hoo glue. I don't know how well it would stick to felt, but I find in doing that sardine project, I'll put a link in the show notes below, I found that doing this little bit of stitching around the edge really helped to keep the Fabrisolve from moving. So since this one doesn't even have Fabrisolve, I'm just going to stitch it together. I stitched around the edge, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch a little bit in the center, basting, just to hold it in place. I'm going to baste it in the dark areas. And if you're stitching a smaller design, like I said, this is roughly about 4 inches. If you're doing something smaller, you don't even need to do the center part. So I'm going to start with the largest flower, and I'm going to start from the center and work my way out on this. And I just want to say, I think this is the poppy, and I love poppies. So maybe that's why I selected this image. I'm not sure. But this is a palette I'm going to use. So I'm starting with the green center first. I have 3 strands, and I'm not going to tie a knot. I'm just holding the tail back here. And what I'm doing is just doing like some very consistent satin stitches. Now what I want to do, that I'm this far along, a couple stitches, I want to make sure I'm catching that tail. That locks it down. Another thing I realized is that you want to make these stitches consistent, but you also want to not make it so boringly perfect that people will think it's machine stitched. In other words, relax, enjoy. This is very relaxing. So that's the center. I'm going on to the next color. I finished stitching the center of this larger poppy, and now I'm going in with a dark peach color for around the petals. So I thought I'd come in and show you what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep it, the stitches about 1/4 of an inch long, and I'm just staggering them. I want them to have a nice even but natural look, and I don't want the stitches to be too long. So I'm just going to stitch along and do this. I do have a darker color that I may come in and do these little lines that you see. So just to show you what I'm doing, I'm going around and doing some guiding stitches. So they're basically spaced apart stitches, but they're showing me the angle I want to go, because if you start concentrating on one area and you're not paying attention, it could end up being like straight across and you end up without getting the desired angle that you want. So I'm just kind of working my way around, leaving gaps that I'll fill in later, but just kind of trying to make everything go in the direction that I want. And the nice thing too, when you do it this way, is that it's much easier to fill in. You don't have to worry about the angle at that point. You just have to worry about filling in the neat stitches. I finished my guiding stitches all the way around. Now I'm going to fill in the stitches in between there. I'm still staggering. But you just want to stagger the stitches so it fills very evenly. And I know it's a slow process, but it really is meditative. And especially if you're working with colors that you love, you just kind of enjoy seeing them. So I'm going to keep stitching, but I just wanted to share. So over here, this part is filled in, and these just have the guiding stitches, so I'm going to go in and fill those in. I finished stitching that center flower. I'm coming in with a darker color to do some of the lines, and I'm still using 3 strands. Obviously I can't see the lines that were there originally, so I'm just kind of stitching some lines where I think they should be. So there's the first flower, and time frame wise, it took an hour and 45 minutes roughly to stitch that one flower. So just as a reference point, I know it seems like it takes a long time, and an hour and 45 minutes to stitch that. So let me go on. I think I'll do like this light pink one next, and just keep stitching. So I finished all the large flowers. It took almost exactly 2 hours to do this, and this flower. So it gives you an idea. It's been 3 hours, 45 minutes to do all the large flowers. So what I'm going to do next are the leaves. They should go pretty fast. I'm going to do a leaf stitch, and I'm doing it in probably these 2 shades of green, and just finish off these leaves. And I'll leave these blue flowers for the end. Oh, and there's some little yellow ones too. So I'll leave those till the end, but I want to get the leaves done because again, I hope they're going to go pretty fast. And what I'm doing is 3 strands of the lightest green that I have that I'm using, and I'm going to do a leaf stitch. So this is where I'm combining regular embroidery with while making a patch. Because normally a patch would be the satin stitch all over, but this leaf stitch is more of an embroidery stitch, so it's more decorative, but it also is tight enough that it'll work for a patch. I'm now starting the 5th hour of stitching, so it's going actually fairly quickly, but I'll just keep going and we'll see how many hours this takes. I have finished stitching all of the flowers and the leaves. What I decided to do down here, you could see I had like a spray of leaves on the fabric itself. It looked like a lot of little leaves basically. So I decided instead of doing that, I did a couple of leaf stitches that were similar to these down here, just to give it a more solid feel rather than a spray of leaves, which when I turn it into a patch, you'll see why it's easier to have just a couple leaves. I did some weaving on the center of these flowers, and I also did some lazy daisy stitches around the petals, or as the petals on this. That's pretty much it. I'm going to cut it out now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave roughly a 1/8 inch space around all the pieces. And you want to do this fairly carefully. This is just trying to get rid of the main pieces. You want to make sure you don't cut into any of the stitches. And we're going to go in and tidy up these cuts. So, like I said, main thing is get close and don't cut the stitches. Okay. So once you get to this point, come back in with the very detailed scissor. There's my patch. You could see all the edges. You could see the background color coming through. And in here, that's all the fabric. I'm going to take a very dark green and I'm going to do the edges and just do a wrap whip stitch. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go into these areas and fill it in with the same dark green. So the whole thing will be embroidered. It will look like a machine stitched patch. And I'm using 3 strands of a dark green that's almost blackish. And I'm just going to start doing a whip stitch, which is just going around. The stitches are close together so it fills in any gaps. It creates a very clean border. When you pull in the stitch, you want to make sure it's lined up next to the previous stitch. Right now, with just the stitching the flowers, I am, time frame wise, I have just under 9 hours of stitching to do the all the flowers and leaves, all the embroidery on the front. When you do this stitch, you want to get close to where the edge of your embroidery was, and just finish off that edge. And I'm just going to go around and keep stitching. Okay, so I finished stitching the edge, all the flowers, all the leaves. I still need to finish stitching inside these areas in between. Okay, so you can see I did some stitching of the dark green in here. I still need to do some in these areas, but I wanted to share where I'm at right now. So I calculated out that to get to this point here, I'm at 11 and a half hours of stitching. That is not counting the cutting out the piece of or selecting the fabric, cutting it out, selecting the felt, all the basics. It's the actual stitching. So 11 and a half hours. I anticipate maybe anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to finish filling in all these areas, the little areas. So let's just say a little over 12 hours to do all the stitching on this. So not that bad when you have the design already done for you from the fabric. I thought that was pretty good timing. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when I upload new videos. And please leave a comment. I really love reading the comments from everyone. And also, please check out my website at LyndaCreates.com. That's Linda with the Y, to see other things that I make. I am really enjoying making these embroidery patches. And what I'm enjoying the most about making these is that a lot of these areas look like machine embroidery. But it's really fun when you start adding actual embroidery stitches, like these lazy daisy stitches and a weaving. A machine would never do that, so it really makes your patch unique. And the fact that this came from a piece of fabric, from scrap fabric, and turned into this, it's also a great upcycle project as well. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!